Welcome to the Queer Witch Project, your resource for all things queer and witchy. I am Damona Peacock, a fabulous, non-binary, neurospicy ordained queerdo with a fascination for all things cycles, symbolism, and patterns.
And I'm Moonkittee, your queer femme, poly kitchen witch, and proud geek. Today's topic is animal magic, connections, and guidance.
Yay!
Yay!
I am very drawn to animal magic
Mm-hmm.
and animal guides and connection with nature.
Mm-hmm.
Care for animals and animal spirit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There is a magic to being connected to animals and what that magic is. And I want to start and preface by a very, very big distinction that gets unfortunately co-opted on that thing. And it's but that's my spirit animal. No, if you are not of a native practice, no, it is not. Karen, sorry. So let's talk and start this off with the difference between spirit animals and animal guides because they are two completely different things.
Well, I am not indigenous that I
Mm-hmm.
know of. I'm very, very white.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally do not partake in the spirit animal traditions. I believe that it belongs to certain indigenous tribes, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, spirit animals generally belong to specific native or indigenous practices that are closed to those who are outside of that culture, mainly because they usually have a very specific process, a journey, or method of meeting that spirit animal. And there's also kind of the link that the belief is that the spirit animal is an aspect of a cycle of life that teaches a deeper meaning or a specific spiritual lesson. So it's a very, very specific thing, a very specific process, and a very ancient traditional process that is done to find your spirit animal if you are of an indigenous population. And for those, again, I am not. So if I'm getting that wrong from someone indigenous population who is hearing this, please correct me. I'm happy to be corrected on that. But the main thing is if you are not of that culture, it is not a spirit animal. Now, it can be an animal guide. And that's a little bit different because it's human nature. It is human nature to be drawn to animals. I mean, we are cat people, we are dog people, we are peacock people, we are drawn to cute little things that we can take care of or see something in them that's wild and impressive and want to emulate that. It is human nature to be drawn to animals and associate those characteristics of that animal in their idea of personal expression. So that's the difference though. You're not, if you're saying I am connecting with cat as an animal guide, it's different than saying cat is my spirit animal, right?
And I would also say my approach has to do with the thought that animals have souls and spirits, spirit energy, and life force and spark of life and consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
just like we do. Sure, they don't have the English language, but they do have body language and ways of communication
Mm-hmm.
that we as humans can observe and interpret and learn from. They have such wisdom in their, in their survival and in their instincts. It's really, I think it makes a lot of sense that we would be drawn to explore, observe, understand how animals exist, creatures, how life exists in this
Mm-hmm.
wide, wonderful, beautiful, diverse world, and feel a connection and a reverence for that piece of life. And sometimes we get inspired by it. Like, there are so many animals in the tarot, and
Mm-hmm.
they all have their symbology and their legends and their stories and their personalities. And when I meet animals, like, I do a lot of dog sitting, so a lot
Mm-hmm.
of pet sitting, house sitting. I have cats. I've had cats my whole life. I have known my fair share of pets. And the thing is that they have personalities just like people do. They
Mm-hmm.
have unique things that make them unique about themselves. And they have an aura, a vibe, a keen sense of their surroundings. Like there's so much like
Mm-hmm.
wisdom that can be shared through that love of caretaking and companionship that animals have offered humans for And our ancestor, even farm animals, I don't believe that you don't get attached to them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you eat your farm animals or not. I think traditionally when it was the family farm, there was a lot of love and care that went into raising their own food.
Mm-hmm. And again,
That
it's one of those things that it's part of our human nature to see these things and mimic them. I think of almost every child I know, including myself, has at one point pretended to be an animal as a
absolutely
special
right.
friend, or
Yeah,
has gone through a period of time where they associate more or need to be addressed as an animal. And it's not, doesn't make you one thing less or another, but again, it's that idea of seeing something out there and finding that connection with what it's doing and how it reacts, and finding a way to internalize that energy into something that you can do or see or embody.
and I think it's very universal to respect the life force in other things
Mm-hmm.
as well as in ourselves. There is a magic in and of itself to that, really. And of course we're going to have connections to it. I have very deep connections
Yes.
to animals in both idea
Mm-hmm.
and being out in the world and observing animals. I'm one of
Mm-hmm.
the crazy ladies that will offer a breadstick to a raccoon if it happens to walk by.
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that I've said for the longest time. Animals also have archetypes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I definitely have the archetype where my first deity was dragon. Long before a human deity, there was this animalistic, creaturistic kind of energy that spoke to me that started my practice. But again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But that connection to where we are as humans and what we want to do and how we react to animals in the wild can say a lot about who we are as people and how connected we
We
are to the cycle of life and nature.
Yep. And how we express ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and what we care about, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because I'm all for preserving, eradicating endangered species and everything, but I also really don't want to be bit by a venomous
Mm-hmm.
creature either. So it's like respect and reverence, but
I was just gonna say, if you think about it, even our names have animal connotations to it. You have
yep.
Damona Peacock. I have Shay Moon-Kitty. There is connections to the animal essence in our names as well. So there's all of this kind of thing. And again, there is that healthy respect for venomous or poisonous creatures and their place in the circle of life for how they relate to one of the things. The only thing I can't figure out for a circle of life is mosquitoes, but there are plenty
It's
of other
funny.
bugs that frogs can eat other than mosquitoes. But beyond that, beyond the circle of life, there is a reason and a place for everything in it.
I have like a couple of side tangents on one of those. It's funny that you say that because I have was raised to be arachnophobic. I say that
Mm-hmm.
because I know that it was a learned fear that I got from my mother and my
Mm-hmm.
sister, but I have learned to be a lot more neutral about spiders. Yes, they still on some level will always kind of creep me out. However, they are an ally in the war against bugs.
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned the mosquitoes, and I'm like, I'm not a big fan of a lot of some bugs, okay, but other bugs creep me out more than spiders. So
I do not like bugs. I do not like spiders.
yeah,
Either or. I respect spiders,
they're
but they
deeply
need to stay out of
magical.
my home. And same thing with bugs and creatures again. I respect you. I respect you outside of the boundaries of where I'm currently living. I will do my best not to disturb you. By the same token, do not disturb me in my boundaries of living. So, but that's where it goes. But we're kind of going off on a tangent with things. Again, you don't have to love all animals and all creatures to still
Fine.
find value in being connected or wanting a connection with an animal.
Well, and I think that's the thing is you have to find what your animal magic is, what your
Mm-hmm.
connection is. Is it that you adopt all the stray kitties?
Mm-hmm.
Are you that person? Are you the person that sees seven ravens on the side of the road and gets some kind of download because
Mm-hmm.
somebody's trying to send you a message, sort of thing?
And that leads to a question is like, okay, so you have this idea for someone who is just starting out going, I keep dreaming of ravens. Does that mean it's my spirit animal? Is it my animal guide? What does that mean? And to that, I generally say, unless again, If you are a native or indigenous person, then you might want to seek out the counsel of your medicine person or someone else who's your spiritual leader to seek something else. If you are not, then there's still a lesson that can be learned. There's still a meaning and a useful tool for learning that lesson. And now it's a matter of looking at it for a different meaning.
So again, much with symbology and mythology, you always have to ask yourself, if you're seeing this or you're dreaming of this animal, what does it mean to you? You know,
Right.
what association do you tend to have with it? Do you think of them as being a certain way? Do you have is it something that reminds you of your childhood or a past life? You always have to be examining it from the lens of what it means to you, and then in through the lens of what's some of the universal symbolism around it. So if we were using the example of ravens, the first thing I would think about is what's your connection with Odin? Do you have a connection with Odin? Because I know Odin likes to has ravens associated with his mythology. I believe that being a magically aware human in this world, the presence and or imaginings, connections of animals or animal spirits, of the spirit of the animal showing up in certain things constantly, the same animal showing up in different tarot readings, that could also be a message there.
So that would be the first step then, is like doing your research and finding out the symbology of what that animal is that you're seeing, correct? So
Yes.
so
Past what it means to you, what does it mean in the world in general too? It could be what we call the God phone. So it could be a specific energy, a guide, deity wanting to get your attention or talk with you in some way, shape, or form. Have you commune with them. They can send little animal messengers.
And there are some very specific deities that we mentioned, again, Odin and Hecate with ravens, but there's other really common ones, for example, like Athena for owls, which symbolizes wisdom and knowledge, or Hera and peacocks. There's also the other idea.
Bast and Sekhmet for our divine felines.
Exactly. There's so many different creatures that have some sort of connection. Cats also to Freya, of the Norse religion. So there's so many different things that are associated with different animals, with different gods and goddesses across different pantheons. So if you are drawn to a pantheon of some sort, you can look and see what is associated with them and see if that may be, like you said, the God phone knocking, saying, hey, I would like to potentially work with you.
I mean, in some traditions, the animals are the gods. So,
and again, that idea of animal archetypes is a deity in a different name. So it's a style and thing where it's not a name to it per se. It's a creature, it's a thing, but it still has the magical properties of it.
So one of my favorite comparisons to make, since you keep mentioning when you bring up the animal archetypes, is that symbolically the peacock and the phoenix. The phoenix is a mythological creature, and the peacock is an actual bird that lives on this earth. But energetically, spiritually, symbolically, they're the same thing. So peacock people are phoenix people. And I say that because the peacock literally loses its beautiful plumage every year and regrows a new set of beautiful plumage every spring for their rutting season. But they go through that transformation and that glow up. So peacock people and phoenixes, they are phoenix spirits. I also like to say dragon and dinosaur are related.
Oh, absolutely.
Dinosaur is kind of like the proof that dragon existed in flesh at one point. But dragon is really also so much more than what a dinosaur is, because it is the spirit, the energy, the archetype, the mythological power vibe of what dinosaurs are real life representation of.
Right. And there's some very cool things. Yeah, dragon, dinosaur, jaguar. If you're talking about a lot of the Mesoamerican, South American areas, jaguar was a huge archetype of that kind of energetic of, again, the pig, panther, cat kind of mythology that also became associated with various deities that wore the jaguar head, and war became aspect of part human, part god. And there are a lot of mythologies out there that have that hybrid of they are half animal, half human, and that's kind of, and to me, in the way my brain tends to think of things, it's that connection line as you're going from primal animal type archetypes to human type archetypes and
Mm.
gods by names. There's usually a connection between where one becomes one or has some sort of aspect where they'll take on it. I mean, Zeus becomes a swan several
And a
times over,
cow,
and a cow
a
and things like
bull.
that. They go through, they take things on, but there's also, like you say, Horus and Anubis, who have the heads of a creature and the body of a human that leads into something else. So it's really about that transition and that
Mhm.
transformational nature that comes with an animal guide.
And I think part of the lesson here, truly, ultimately, is the fact that we as humans tend to think of ourselves as above or other than the
Mm-hmm.
animal kingdoms. And the truth is that in each of us, we have animal nature. We are a mammal.
Mm-hmm.
We are humans, but we're also animals. And you see that like in the tarot, it's symbolized often by the chariot is
Mm-hmm.
led by two horses or two lions or whatever, but it's the two creatures. It's that logical thinking consciousness brain side of ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the animalistic survivalistic hormonal powerful willful need to survive and have a lust for life
Mm-hmm.
side of ourselves. And where the chariot is all about trying to be able to drive the whole body, the whole
Mm-hmm.
chariot, this whole thing called living between these two worlds of our animal selves and our logical, exalted human selves. So I don't think we're supposed to be all of one or the other. I think
Mm-mm.
that we should have a balanced connection with both.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that we dip into animal magic
Mm-hmm.
as
And
mammals.
yeah, I agree. And there's something else with animal magic too, that we've talked about animals being associated with gods and goddesses and archetypes and things, but there's also elemental connections to a lot of different animals as well. Mythological creatures, all of these things tend to have an elemental connection, which again goes back to that kind of primal aspect of what are the things that we need to survive. We need air to breathe, we need water to drink, we need fire to keep us warm, and we need food. So there goes back to that elemental aspect of it. So you've got things like the phoenix and the salamander for fire, which I always thought salamander was an odd and interesting one because an actual living salamander is in the water, but it's a fire elemental.
I
But
can't
for
explain that
I
one.
can't explain that one. I've never been able to truly understand that one, other than it's a name for something. Where I think the roots of the name salamander come from something else that
Mm.
means fire, and then it's shifted to the creature of water. But selkies and waters, and then dragon can be almost any elemental. And again, if you're talking like, for example, in Chinese culture, the dragon, as it comes across as a construct for the zodiac, can have all five different elements of the Chinese structure in that kind of dragon. So some things can be across things. Cats also can be nature. They can also sometimes be air. If I think of the Cheshire cat and the idea of the thinking, the disappearing, the vanishing cat, as
Mm.
a kind of an air elemental, but also again that kind of warm
Trickster
purring
spirit.
trickster. Yeah, so there's lots of different things that you can find too. So if you're working primarily with elemental magic, you can also find some really great balances with working with animals in your practice as well, because there is so much interconnection between all of that.
So what about, do you have a spiritual connection with your pets?
I don't have any pets at the moment, unfortunately,
Well,
but yes,
you have.
I have. And the thing is, and this is where again it becomes different, because there's the idea of a familiar and then there's the
Mm-hmm.
idea of a pet. And you'll also find a lot of witches get up in arms. This is another one of those fire blowout tarot card debate kind of things. It's like, can your pet be your familiar? Yes. Is your pet always your familiar? No. Is your familiar always your pet? Not necessarily. So it really can be that kind of thing. And
I think the idea of familiar came from the concept that it is a spirit that you are familiar with from, past lives simultaneously together. So it's a familiarity, it's a familiar spirit. And yeah, am I gonna haunt some of my most beloveds as a cat next life? You bet your ass I am.
The idea also of a familiar in a lot of practice idea and lore is that it is a guide to help and assist in your magical practice,
Yeah.
and versus a pet is a companion. So
Mm.
again, they can be the same thing, but they aren't necessarily always going to be the same thing. And when working magically or energetically.
Well, and a pet can be a protector, but also a pet can be an emotional support, or even a, medical assistant. If your pet is like your guide dog, do you have a spiritual connection to it? I think in some cases you would, and in other cases maybe that's not how it is. But I do find even how we often have working relationships with pets. Horses do a lot of work with humans in cattle driving, or even like sheepdogs fascinate me. So just the fact that we have so much partnership with animals, and it makes sense that we would be in partnership with animal spirits.
And it's really interesting because if you talk to a lot of those who work with animals on a regular basis, like horses and things like that, if it is a working farm, a horse is a tool. It is a vehicle to do this, and there's a connection to the animal and everything else, but they're not a pet, right? In that case, I
Right.
would consider them almost more of a familiar because they are there to assist the working of what you are doing. The other one that I think
It's
of
like a
is
partnership, right? More like a partnership.
the other one I hear of and think of a lot is from what I have read. I don't know this per se, but from what I have read, for those who do dog sledding, because you'll have
Oh,
so many dogs, they are not pets; they are working animals that do these kinds of things, and you don't treat them as pets the same way because
they're
if you,
coworkers.
yeah, they are trained for a very specific thing, and you don't treat them the same way you would your pet in per se, because there has to be this kind of level of dominance or control or directive. So
Mm.
you're going to listen, do what I say, give you the controls, here's what you're going to do, versus your average lapdog, you may not get that same kind of reaction out of it to do the work that you need it to do. So there's also that kind of idea of separation between what is a familiar, what is a pet, what is a working creature.
I mean, that's
Something else to
fair to
think about.
say, because I would also say I am the type of person that dogs always say hi to me,
Hmm.
and I always notice them. So I will always be, the one, can I say hi to your dog?
Hmm.
Always ask the human first, can I say
Hmm.
hello to your dog? But never do I ever, if it's a working dog, in a vest.
Mm-mm.
It's that respect thing of letting them do their job and not distracting them, their job of
Right.
keeping people safe or doing medical alert or
Hmm.
whatever is their job is. So humans and animals are always going to have a very special connection.
Hmm.
Sometimes it'll be spiritual, sometimes it'll be practical. Yeah. So how would we work animal magic then? What are ways in which we work with animal magic?
Well, it can be so many different things. There's a lot of basic tools if you're trying to work with it in an abstract. So you're working with a deity. You can have little effigies or little symbols, carved figurines that can go on your altar,
Tattoos.
tattoos, something that again relates to that animal, to that element, to help embody that spirit. Again, things done with intention. If you're getting a tattoo of a peacock, because I know you have a beautiful one, it's built, you did it with, again, the intention of embodying the peacock energy. And so
Yep.
that is now part of you, and that is part of who you are. Again, so are you imbuing that thing in you permanently, temporarily? We've definitely done henna or other temporary body art that temporarily embodies the element of a creature or something, that to take on aspects of that. For how to work with it practically, I have a couple of different oracle decks that
Yeah.
feature different animal representations and talk about what their connections are to the symbology of each animal, and see what comes through and work through them that way. There's so many books on animal magic and animal symbology, all that kind of stuff that you can find. What other things can
I
you think of?
I literally will go sit out in nature
Hmm.
and just observe life doing life.
Hmm.
So I have someone who taught that if you see animals in threes, it
Hmm.
means something, or at least it meant something to them. Or if you see the same type of animal 3 times on
Mm-hmm.
3 different occasions, that's when you need to start paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just see like, oh, there are 3 crows hanging out, that's three. What, I wonder what crows mean, or, why am I always like, I'm always hanging out at the lake and it's so weird that I see the coyotes out and about. Like multiple times I've been seeing coyotes around.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I wonder what the lesson of coyote has for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I also have animal vibe decks that I absolutely love. Pulling cards and getting messages from the animals. But I dream of, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely have a lot of, dive into dream meanings too, because I have dreams of animals. Sometimes I have a little guidebook reference of symbology of, animal symbology and what, if you see these, what they could mean. And I'm constantly referencing it for either animals I encounter in real life or animals I myself or people who have told me what they've dreamed of. Somebody messages me saying, "Can I tell you what I dreamed?" I'd be like, "Heck yeah, tell me what you're
Mm-hmm.
dreaming," and then we'll discuss it. I think that's a lot of the ways in which I feel like I connect to animal guides and the vibes of animals.
Mm-hmm. I have definitely come across animals on when I've done spirit journeys where I go into a trance and I step through and progress. I don't want to say shamanic journeys because again, you're talking additional practice, different kinds of things, but kind of spirit journeys where I have met up with different animal archetypes and archetype here with a big A instead of the the little a, and just gotten messages either for me or through me
Mm-hmm.
to others from them on those journeys, and it's been really fascinating to see them. And
I
it's
have,
almost like working with learning to work with a deity. You can do the same thing with that, as if you're curious about something and approaching them and just opening it up. And like always, consent goes both ways. Sometimes they're going to want to work with you, and sometimes they're going to be like, nope, nope, sorry. Cool, thank you for the interest, that you appreciate the things that I can bring, but I am not interested in working with you right now, kind of thing.
and on the other hand, if you are interested, you can embody them. You can bring that spirit vibe inside, allow it in and embody it, shapeshift into like
Mm-hmm.
taking a cat nap if you have
Mm-hmm.
a cat spirit connection of reverence to bass, rescue a kitty,
Mm-hmm.
or leave offerings. One of the things that I love, yes, I do feed the wildlife. I try to do it in a respectful way. I will never just go out. You look into what's good and bad for them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you learn that bread is not good for ducks. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
feed bread to ducks. But what are their, go Google their diet and leave offerings
Mm-hmm.
to animals, or just like we would leave offerings to the fae or to
Mm-hmm.
spirit, to deity, to ancestors, you can leave offerings to animals. You can grow a garden specifically because it would make the local wildlife around you happy,
Mm-hmm.
whether that be pollinators or deer.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people up in certain areas are mad that they lose their crops to deer.
To deer, right?
Yeah,
Catnip. Yeah, lots of
right? Grow
different
some
things.
catnip. Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of cool things that you can do.
You can kind of court a relationship with your animals, have a stuffy of them that you sleep with every
Mm-hmm.
night, something that symbolizes that archetype. And so, like, it shores you up. Like, you have a connection with the lion energy, and you know that you can pull that card out in your energy field
Mm-hmm.
whenever you need to be mama bear or mama lion, or, protect somebody or
Mm-hmm.
something you care about, or your property or your space that you can protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it takes us connecting with some kind of archetypal animal energy within ourselves to reach that point where we're safe and comfortable to do that.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes if you can't have an animal in your home for whatever reason, it's one of those things that you can just acknowledge out in nature. I said we have a lot of feral cats around us at the moment, and every time it's like, "Hey, kitty," and
Yeah.
just saying hello and acknowledging that it's there. Or like again, every dog we meet, or like I'll see a little lizard or something swim around, it's like, "Hello, little guy," and just acknowledging the wildlife and just greeting it, giving it that energy, and just saying, hey, I see you. I can't, again, keep you and contain you in my home at the moment, but I still have this respect for what you are and what you're doing.
If you could have any pet visit you in the world, what exotic animal would you want as a pet?
Well, dragon, a fire lizard, of course.
Fire lizard.
Sorry, fire lizard is a very specific reference to a book series by Anne McCaffrey and Pern, and that is a fire lizard is essentially a small dragon that
Aw.
breathes fire, does a whole bunch of other things, but essentially they're about probably 2 or 3 feet from tip to tail. So basically a little mini dragon.
I want a raccoon. I see people on the TikTokies with pet raccoons and I'm very jelly. I don't know what it is, but my entire life I've always wanted a pet raccoon. So, yeah, that's mine.
All right. Is there anything else? We're getting off topic. Is there anything else that we're missing or anything else we want to talk about animal guides with?
I think we've pretty much covered all of our notes one way, shape, or form. I would love to hear if our listeners have any animals magic stories to share with us in the
Yes, please.
comments. Yes, what their animal connections are, or what animal spirit has come into their lives to leave a message or change
Hmm.
something or affect them in some way. What animal vibe they've been told they give off. I love learning that, like, I would rather, instead of when I'm meeting somebody new, instead of asking them what they do for a living, I love asking them obscure questions like that. Like,
Hmm.
if you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be? Sort of
Hmm.
thing. Yeah, I love that. So, with all of that said, I just want to say thank you for listening and to the Queer Witch Project. And if you like what you heard, don't forget to give us those 5 stars and thumbs up and subscribe to our channel and keep checking back for more. And with
Absolutely. And if there's a topic you want to know more about or an episode topic you'd like to suggest, contact us at thequeerwitchproject@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram with the handle at Queer Witch Project. We upload every other week. And remember, queerness is a key to magic.
be yourself and love rebelliously.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.